Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei. Today we're going to be talking about the updated 2025 Minecraft event games ranking that I did on Twitch, but this is kind of a recap of that because it was on Twitch and now everybody watches that. So in case you do want to be there next time, I talk about event stuff all the time pretty much when I'm streaming, or if you ever have a question or ever want to share your opinion regarding an event, I will be live almost daily on Twitch, so just as a little plug in case you don't already know. So yes, go follow. Anyways, let's go to the ranking. So first off, disclaimer, there was one big rule that we used for this. I should probably first introduce what this ranking is. This is an event game ranking of the major events that I'm aware of, that being MCC, Block Wars, Pandora's Box, Biome Battle, Chamber Trials, and Minecraft Mayhem. Those 6 are the ones that we included. There are other, notable events, but I just am not aware of them, or haven't watched them, or don't really know the game, so I can't rank them. But these 6 events are the ones I have either seen or played and was able to rank. This is why I recently watched the entirety of Chamber Trials, because it's a event that has received a lot of attention, and I didn't know anything about it, right? So that's why we wanted to catch myself up to speed. Either way, that's the whole premise of this ranking. We rank them on a scale from 10 to 1, 10 being the best, 10 out of 10 of course is good, 1 out of 10 being the bottom. And I was just curious to see kind of what the current state of the event scene is. You know, what are the games looking like? What is the quality looking like, etc., right? How do things compare to each other? But with a big rule, with a big caveat, I guess, to add into the equation, which is that we're ranking these games outside of their event's context. Now, what does that mean? For example, I think Battle is a good one, right? Block Wars has a game called Battle. It's a PvP Battle Royale game. In Block Wars, this game is unpopular because it doesn't really make sense in Block Wars, you know, with the event being low comp trending and having, you know, a lot more people who don't really play Minecraft very often, having this like really, kit heavy PvP game with, you know, while still having Feinbergs and Greninjas and whoever walking around is a bit silly, and it usually doesn't end up having or making for a fun POV for like half the people playing. However, if you remove the context of the Block Wars event, or more so player base, right? How would you rank Battle? It probably receives a better ranking, right? Which is why I wanted to remove a lot of things out of their context, because I think, number one, it puts it on an equal playing field. For some events, it's a little rough, like PB suffers from it in the rankings. Some of their better games are kind of held back by not being in that environment of PB, right, in this ranking, but we'll get to that later. Either way, yeah, so that's the premise. We have this ranking of these 6 major events, and we put them all on the list with the factor of we're taking them out of the context of the event, which leads to this. While this is not the actual list, these are the games that are not included. It shows, though, MCC, Block Wars, Pandora's Box, Biome Battle on this list, as well as KST, which I have played once, but I don't really know the game. Showdown, don't really know what that is. Mania, I know of, haven't seen or played the games. Clicks games I've heard of, sorry. And then Chamber Trials, which has a game. This is a game that doesn't exist, I think, or something like that. Either way, we'll go from the bottom to the top, which will start with a game that I think makes sense to be pretty low, but it's maybe a little crazy that it's this much lower, but it's because of the context being removed, which is Voidbound from PB. Now, Voidbound in PB is known to be their worst game because it's an elimination-based parkour game. It's not great. It's, even Danny Picacho would agree, even the organizer of PB would agree. Not the best game, but what it has going for it is that it is competitive, right? It changes the race format a little bit, it changes the race format quite a bit, and it makes it a lot more competitive and a bit more intense. The problem is, if you remove the context from the event, which we've done to every game in this ranking, Voidbound suffers a lot. There isn't really much that is in favor of Voidbound. I don't want to put it in a 1 because it's not actually garbage, right? But it's pretty bad. Like, it's pretty bad if you remove it out of the PB context. Either way, that's the first game, and then we go on to the 4. I should probably use the scroll wheel instead, which shows the next few survival games and survival games. This is attempted to be in order within each tier. This means it's better within this tier. This means it's worse within this tier. MCC survival games really does suffer. The thing is, right, a 4 isn't even like terrible. A 4 just means it's really meh. 5 is mid, which means 4 is below mid. The reason, if I remember correctly, why survival games was rated this low is because the what's it called? The loot table is pretty poor, and it's survival games. So survival games is not going to receive a very high rating because more often than not, there's going to be people spectating for the vast majority of the game, which is bad, right? Especially when there's no rounds to break that up. It's just straight up, you're sitting there watching people play the game for 10 minutes, which is bad. But that's just survival games as a concept. That's not really at MCC's fault. MCC does have a choice on their loot table. When people, mutually agree that the loot table in MCC is not great for survival games specifically. So yeah, that's why it ranks lower. I won't go into full detail of a lot of these games. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know what the games are and how they work, etc. These are just very standard parkour games, which it's just like super mid, a little below mid. It could even be a 5, but it's not anything impressive really. I think a pure parkour game. Keep in mind as well, this is my ranking. I don't really think they should be a thing. I think I understand it being a filler game, but if you have an established enough event, you can get rid of your pure parkour game. The only event that I think, 2 technically, the only event really that I think should have it is PB, but within the PB context, Jumping Mad makes sense. It'll be a bit lower in the ranking here because it's removed context, but MCC has it too. I think it's fine to be an MCC, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think having a pure parkour game is, as much as I think MCC is kind of looked at as the Minecraft event, which is why they have survival games, why they have bingo, why they have parkour. I don't think that these games are like doing them the biggest service really, because it's like, it feels super filler. I think Parkour Warrior, which we'll get to later, has a really nice twist and a really nice visual appeal and a really nice theme, which helps. And there's some gimmicks, and I think that justifies it being in the roster. But had that not been a thing, had they just had a pure parkour game with nothing else, I would have been like, what are we doing, right? So yeah. Anyways, Arena from Biome Battle is this low because it's confusing. To this day, I've played the game plenty of times. I sometimes can't. I never can tell if I am winning actively or not. I just find out at the end of the round if our team won or not, and there's not really a consistent way to be able to figure out if you're winning or not, really. You just kind of have to cross your fingers and hope. In my opinion, at least, that's how I feel about Arena, and I think it's also just a PvP game. I think within the context of Biome Battle, it doesn't even help. I think it's just not great. Sorry, I don't really love. I'm also not a PvP fan, so I don't really love Arena that much, if I'm being honest. And then PB Survival Games is down here because Survival Games is still Survival Games. It sucks. The Gulag is interesting, but more often than not, of course, the good player is just getting another chance to play, which is like fine, I guess, but like, I don't know. Like, it's fine. It helps. I mean, it's above MCC Survival Games, so that's what it has going for it, I guess. Anyways, moving on, we go to 5, which is where we see a lot more games. This is where you see Task Tag, which the reason Task Tag is lower is because it's just kind of the same gameplay every single time, and it's not really like that interesting of gameplay. You're just doing tasks. It's very much feeling like Among Us, where if I were to play Among Us very consistently, I wouldn't want to do my tasks, right? I've done these things so many times, I don't want to do these anymore. And in Task Tag, you're doing them 4 times in a row in the span of like 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe even, and it feels a little, 3 times in a row really, but it feels like it's a little bit too much at once. Then Blitz, it's like the battle format. Meh. It's just meh. 5 is mid/meh. It's just meh. Bingo, Ballistic Bingo and Mayhem, it doesn't really do that much. So it's like, alright, it's meh. That's just meh. Whatever. It's just a bingo game. It doesn't, it's like some quality of life, but not really that much. My take on bingo is that it is a very underexplored game type. I think there's so much you could do with bingo. It sucks that, with, like, I couldn't do it for blockwars because bingo shouldn't be in Block Wars. It's like a Minecraft knowledge-based game, etc., right? But you could dive so deep into bingo, and there's so much you could do with bingo, I think, personally. And we haven't really seen that type of experimentation yet. MCC has tried it the most, but even MCC's bingo, you'll see soon, isn't going to rank that high. It's just, all right. Then To Get to the Other Side is here. You should know that I'm not a fan of To Get to the Other Side, but it's because I would get so frustrated by the punching, and I hate it. I hate getting punched. It's so annoying. I do think a good thing about To Get to the Other Side is that, you know, anybody could have a cool moment. Sometimes it looks cool from somebody's POV when they're playing To Get to the Other Side, right? And like, there's funny maps, but like, I don't know. I don't. Not for me. The game's not for me. So it's mid. It's mid. 5 is mid. So mid. Chains is like chained together from Chamber Trials. It's the thing is, chained together as a gimmick is cool. I like that. The problem is in execution for chains for Chamber Trials, the gameplay ends up just being 3, 2, 1, go, 3, 2, 1, go, 3, 2, 1, go for 10 minutes straight, and it gets to a point where I'm just like, we cannot do this. Also, it's mostly parkour. That you'd think the chained gimmick would have more than just parkour, but it's just parkour, which is fine, but like, that's why it's mid. Like, I think the chained gimmick would bring it to like a 6, borderline 7, right? I think that's cool, unique. I like that you have something going like that, but I think after it gets played out enough times, it's gonna really drag. I don't think people are gonna love the experience. Then you have Tomb Titans, which is the first Block Wars entry. I promise I'm not that biased. Okay, this was done on stream with the chat. Okay, this was on stream with chat. Tomb Titans is definitively mid. It just is mid, which sucks because it's one of the newer Block Wars games, but it is mid, especially when you remove the context, right? I think the problem right now with Tomb is it's just not engaging enough, right? There isn't that much going on. There's not nothing going on, but there's not that much going on. And one of the reasons for that partially is because it's been kind of baby moded, right, to an extent, which when you remove the Block Wars context hurts it a decent amount, because, you know, this is designed around knowing that your roster is lower comp and having to make some decisions, etc., to make it a little bit more accessible, and that doesn't really make it a great game. Tomb Titans is also just rushed. This is kind of a known thing. Tomb Titans has been around as a concept for a while, or had been around for a concept as a while. We wanted to, you know, come back for Series 3 with a cool new game. Tomb Titans was the one that felt like it made the most sense to be, you know, the cool new game, a dungeon crawler, something that, you know, Block Wars hadn't had in so long since Crypt, and it was okay. It's just mid. And it sucks, but like, that's fine. I wish Tomb Titans was a banger, but it's not, and it has definitely some major room for improvement, but that's okay. Then Sky High is here. It is a Sky PvP game, which is obviously an overdone genre, but the reason Sky High docks or has docked points is because of the having to gather blocks part and the not having survival points part, right? In PB, not having survival points, sure, right? I still don't love it, but sure, fine. Same with survival games also, by the way. That's also a reason why it's docked points. But sure. Or barely have. I know there's like some survival points, but it's like barely. It's very much nerfed, which is like, sure, fine. In PB's context, that's cool. Outside, it's a different ballpark, all right? We can judge it differently now. And it's not great. And then I think as well, yeah, the having to gather blocks kind of just means that your survival ability is limited. You're being restricted, and it's not the best method, I think. It's not like bad, it just feels like a little meh, which is why it's in mid. That's why. Then Jumping Mad 2, I promise I don't hate PB, okay? I'm just saying this type of ranking really hurts PB because we're taking the context of the event away. We'll see it affect other events like Block Wars at some point as well, just a little bit less dramatically because it's a little bit less all in on the type of event it is, right? But Jumping Mad 2, it gets a significant boost in points over the other just straight up PV or parkour games over here, because it looks really nice, it's really clean, and that's about it. That's it. The visual appeal helps it that much, and that's great. But it's just a parkour game, and that's why it's in 5. Sorry. Anyways, on to 6, which is one of the next up big ones here. We see Sky Skirmish. It's just a Sky game, but it's super safe. It takes less risks than Sky High, but it's in its favor here when the context removed. So simple like that. Elytra Race. It's just an Elytra racing game. I think it's cool. But in the instance that this gets played, more than once, your maps are kind of voided to an extent because it's kind of hard to make things fair, right? In that sense, when people have experience of seeing the map, and in a game like Elytra Race, that will matter a lot. Also, this one has like laps of the same map, and it's like long-ish. It feels like a slightly bit too long. Maybe it could be like a lap shorter, or the map is shorter when you have more laps. I don't know, but yeah, it's just a little okay. This is just okay, by the way. Okay, mid, meh. Just to kind of, put it into words. Then you have Lunge, which is unfortunate that, Blockwars' lowest 2 scoring games here are the newest games. Again, context of the event is removed. I think Lunge does suffer from that. Lunge is kind of designed to be a silly, goofy PvP game, but when the context of a silly, goofy event is removed, it's kind of an oddball game, right? It's a little bit wacky, weird. I don't think it's actually bad though, which is why it's in okay, right? I just think it's like, oh yeah, if you remove it out of the context of Blockwars, it wouldn't really be able to stack up against most of the other PvP games, which is fine. Sky Fest is the Chamber Trials Sky game. I think it ranks a little higher. I don't remember why. I'm gonna be very honest. Oh, it's I think because they have a secondary objective. Is that correct? I think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. It's better though, just a little bit. I don't know. Anyways, then you have Bingo But Fast from MCC, which is down here because again, it's a pretty standard rendition of Bingo. It does have a lot of quality of life improvements, right? I think that the tools and stuff are nice. I think Elytra stuff, you have that in Ballistic Bingo too, but I think it's just slightly nicer in MCC, which would give it like literally 1 point, like over here, 1 point over the other Bingo. The difference here is MCC does have a much more interesting objective board. They have cooler custom objectives, which is nice, but I do still think it's one of the weakest games in the MCC roster. It very much feels, when you're doing a ranking like this, that Bingo But Fast is kind of there because it feels like there should be a bingo game in MCC, and that's why you have Bingo But Fast, which is meh. It's like okay. I mean, that's why it's in 6. Then you have Construction from Blockwars. This one's a little tough to properly rank in the modern day of the event because, of course, it's what's it called? A game that hasn't been in rotation for a while, but it's not like known to be shelved. It's just not been in rotation for a while because it doesn't exist as of right now. But yeah, Construction is just down here because it's kind of okay. It's just an okay game mode, right? What it does right now isn't like bad. There's some parts of it that are cool. Outside of the Blockwars context, I think helps it like a little bit, and that's about it. I'm gonna make the decision to not go over every game because it's gonna take a long time. Mad Dash Chamber Trials race game, it's very generic, so it's okay. Showdown, which is the I think Mayhem finale, is alright. I mean, it's a PvP based one or a knockback based finale, which is a little gimmicky, but like it's okay, so decent. Battle gets some bonus points because without the Blockwars context of the lower skill players, etc. If you assume, hey, you kind of have an average PvP or an average Minecrafter roster for all of this to an extent, Battle would be probably a better experience overall. Maybe, I don't know. It's like the game isn't bad, it just doesn't fit in Blockwars. Then Build Mart, there just isn't enough footage of the updated version of Build Mart, which is like the new one from Pride is what is being factored in here. There's just not enough footage to really like properly give it the props it might deserve. From what we've seen so far, which is the most fair thing to rank, it's okay. Like it has potential. It looks like it could be really cool. We just don't know it yet. We can't prove it, so it's okay for now. The Inferno is the Chamber Trials finale where they do like little different challenges. it's okay, right? If you remove the context of Chamber Trials, which is a bit more of a competitive environment, this could end up being a bit of a wacky, like, meh finale if, you know, it's that skill-based. But I think within Chamber Trials it works really well. It would be like a 7 if you include the context, of course. But for here, it's at the top of okay. Then you have Rapid Racer from Mayhem. Very cool concept. Not the best execution. The map's just been the same thing, and that would be the current version right now. If we look at Rapid Racers, the map's been the same for like a year or two. It's okay. Conceptually would be like fantastic, but right now it's okay. Hungry Hoglins from Biome Battle. This finale is, you know, it's interesting. Kind of, it's a pretty standard concept. The way the game plays out is cool, but the spectating is really difficult, and it's sometimes kind of hard to tell when stuff is happening. There are hype moments, but I think finales are to be critiqued a little bit more strictly, which is why Hungry Hoglins is at the top of 6. So that's fair. Then you have Parkour Warrior from his C. I already kind of gave my little brief thoughts about it. I think it does a lot to improve upon the parkour, just straight up parkour game mode, but I don't think that it makes, I think just the core game like genre is not that interesting or not that exciting, so that's why it ranks at the high end of 6 for me. Zone Control from Chamber Trials is like a battle box merges with Splat type of game to an extent, and I think it's interesting. I think it's just like fine. I mean, it's okay. It's like almost a 7, right? It's high end 6. I think it's an okay game, and I think there's not really like, I don't really know what I would, actually no, I do know what I would do about it, but we'll get to that later, because there is a game that I want to talk about in relation to Zone Control. Then you have Gardens of the Chamber, which is Mayhem's battle box type of game, which is like Valorant, and I think it's pretty solid. I mean, that's why it's at the top of 6. I think at some point it was maybe even in 7, so it's like right there at the border of 6 to 7. Pretty solid game. Anyways, next up we have 7. This is you know, when we are entering our like good range of games, where we have Colosseum from Pandora's Box. I think this is a very safe finale, right? But I think it's good. I don't think it being safe is a problem necessarily. It just feels like, yeah, it's a good finale. It makes sense to be a finale. It has intense moments. I do think the spectating sometimes is a little bit tricky. I from what I remember, it's a little hard to spectate sometimes. Or actually pretty half of the time it's pretty hard to spectate. But I think it's just an extraction round essentially, right? Which is good. So yeah, there you go. Cool. Parkour Tag up in 7. I think Parkour Tag is a very difficult game to really comment on, because we've mostly only seen it in the context of Pride, right? At least as of recent. We actually recently did get Parkour Tag in a regular MCC, and I thought it was cool to see it in rotation. I think it was exciting. I do think there is a level of bias in favor of Parkour Tag right now, because it hasn't been seen that much, right? I think people are more excited for Parkour Tag because it's been such an infrequent inclusion in the MCC roster as of the past year or two, right? So that's why I think it gets some bonus points as of right now in terms of the ranking. I think had Parkour Tag been an actively played game, it would maybe be a 6, because then, you know, you've seen it enough times. But I think Parkour Tag does have some exciting moments. I think any round-robin game that isn't PvP deserves some props for, you know, exploring something new. And I think Parkour Tag was the first game to be round-robin outside of PvP. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. So that's cool. I like that. Anyways, up next we have Dungeon Dash from Biome Battle, which I think is a really interesting game mode. I think it's good. However, the problem I have with Dungeon Dash, which is why it's docked a significant amount of points, is that I am always looking forward to that challenge room that I'm specifically choosing to do, right? Whether it's the puzzle, whether it's the build, whether it's the whatever, right? And I feel like I'm spending half of the game looking for that, doing pretty much nothing or very little, and then half of the game I actually get to do the challenge room that I'm looking forward to. I think Dungeon Dash would have been a better game had it just not been Dungeon Dash, but been the objectives back to back to back. I don't think the dungeon element of it is relevant, really, or barely is relevant. I think it's just the objectives were really cool, and I wish that was the thing that I was doing pretty much the entire time, rather than looking through a dungeon doing whatever, because it's not really like you're incentivized to make a priority between the two, right? You have to pick, oh, do I want to do all the challenges, or do I want to explore the entire dungeon and maybe skip a challenge? No, it's just, I want to do the challenges. Oh, I don't have enough time to finish the challenges. Okay, unlucky, I guess, and there's not really anything else going for it past that. So I think the game is good, but I wish it was kind of different, if that makes sense. I guess maybe the dungeon elements could be explored upon a bit more, but yeah, I think that's my take on Dungeon Dash. Then Sky Spleef, which is the Spleef game that has the, what's it called, the wind charges as the gimmick, right? The reason it docks points is because I think if you remove the context of Biome Battle, which feels like a bit more of a goofy environment, I think it's becoming too gimmicky, and I think it's also extremely unfriendly towards newcomers, right? Assuming you don't know what you're getting into, this is a game where you just don't get to play, which I think is a little in terms of the part of Sky Spleef. But I do think when the game is played properly, it's really interesting. I think there's some really unique moments, and I think that's why I would consider it good. So yeah. Gold Rush from Trigger Trials, it's a 7 because it's essentially what feels like Sands of Time, but isn't Sands of Time. And I think it doesn't really do much to explore on that foundation of what the game is. It's just a dungeon crawler, but it's a good one. It's a good dungeon crawler, so that's why it's a 7. Gauntlet 2 is here because I think the party format is really cool. I think you see parties up here, of course, right? So I think the party format is really cool. I think party right now is in a slightly better spot than Gauntlet 2. I think if you remove the context of the event especially, I think party is in a bit more of an interesting spot than Gauntlet 2. I think Gauntlet 2's sheep game, of course, is something I've advocated for that I think is really interesting. I think that's fantastic, but I think a lot of their other challenges are a little bit, whether it's more generic or just a little bit like weird. It doesn't feel like it should be in a party-esque like type of game, even though Gauntlet 2 isn't. It doesn't advertise itself as a party game, but it is viewed to be a party game. At least it's always directly compared to party, right? So that's why it's like feels like a party game, even though it's kind of like a challenge. It's like a boss rush if the bosses were challenges. Kind of, I don't know, not really, but kind of. So I think it's good, but yeah, that's why it's done here. Oppenslimer is the game I was waiting for to talk about zone control a bit more. I think Oppenslimer is a very cool looking game, and the movement is great. I think the PvP is cool, but the problem is the PvP isn't used mostly. I mean, you're the whole, like, I've always been told that the PvP isn't worth doing. So, but it feels like I should be doing the PvP. That's like what's instinctively the thing I'm trying to do, right? I've got all these cool launchers and this cool movement. It feels like I should be PvPing people, but I'm not, which is why I'm saying zone control, it's like a round robin Splatoon type of game. Oppenslimer, it's like the coolest Splat or Splatoon has ever looked in the Minecraft event scene. If zone control had this movement and combat, this game would be like a 9 or like an 8. It would be so cool. It would be fantastic, but that's not the current state of the event scene, so unlucky. But that's what I think would be freaking awesome, man. I think it'd be fire. It'd be super cool if that was a thing. So that's why Oppenslimer is a bit lower down. It feels not intuitive, but I do really like a lot of the things they've got going for it, which is why I think it's good. Shockwave, blockwars finale. I think this is a pretty good finale, honestly, especially if we remove the context from blockwars. This is a good finale. I think it's got a lot of hype moments. It's got a lot of things to build off of. I do agree that, like, you know, from a spectating standpoint, it could be better, but I think out of the event finales besides Dodgebolt, it's probably second best to spectate, or at least second easiest to follow in terms of spectating. I think the main problem with some of the people spectating or not having a good time spectating is that they just don't care, which is like, how are we supposed to make you care? I don't know. It's still cool moments. If you pay attention, it's cool, but if you don't, then I understand why you wouldn't think it's cool. So I don't know, but I think it's good. I think it's a good finale. So yeah, that's why it's a 7. Overspleef up next from blockwars. I think the way Overspleef ranked is like, I think the regular Spleef round, because as of right now, the Spleef rounds are the vanilla Spleef, the TNT Spleef, and the growth Spleef. I think the TNT, or sorry, I think the vanilla Spleef is like a 6, like a high 6. It's just good, or like okay, good. It's like there's nothing really wrong with it. I think the TNT Spleef is like a 9. I think that's super cool. I think it's just a great round. And I think the what's it called? The growth one is like a 5. It's okay. It's like 6, 5, somewhere in between that. It's all right. It's good. So that's why it's a 7. That's that simple formula. Grid runners, conceptually fantastic. Current state could be better. I think Grid Runners is just held back so much by the amount of updates it needs to kind of hold up, and I think that's really difficult. It's not something I would expect Noxer to be able to upkeep, and I think that's why the game suffers. It's a decision you have to make, of course, with an event. It's like, do you want this really cool game? Yes. Well, here's, a lot of workload every month, and you're like, oh. Which also, I'll just carry over, applies to Trials of Fire. Conceptually really cool, but it ends up kind of falling behind a little bit because it needs more updates than it gets. It kind of feels too similar every single time. Or in Gridrunner's case, people know how to do all the rooms already, so it doesn't really become a fun puzzle. It just kind of becomes like we'll just do this again and hope we're the fastest, which is like, meh. Trials of Fire to an extent is kind of like that too, but I think the Trials of Fire part that's better is that's way more communication based. The foundation of the game is that every game requires communication, whereas Gridrunners, it's not the main foundation of the mini games, which I think is why Trials of Fire gets a benefit to it. I just wish it was more, unique per time we saw it be played, but it's also kind of hard to ask from a game that's just so new, right? Or not that new, but so new-ish to an extent. Next up, Hyperdrive. It's an Elytra race game, but it's better than the Elytra race. It looks nicer, and I think the round format is better. So that's why it's good. It's still got the same issues every Elytra race has, though, of, well, you need to update it to make it not unfair to people who didn't get to play the last event, or VOD reviewable, which is like, meh, but it's good. It's a good game. Railroad Rush, good game. I like it. It'd be like an 8, but I also think it's a very thin concept. Somebody brought up while we were doing this that it doesn't really have rewatchability, right? Every Railroad Rush kind of looks and feels the same. Of course, there's gonna be some slight differences between every time you watch a POV in Railroad Rush, but it does kind of feel like the same experience every single time, almost 100%, which is like, meh. I wish that wasn't the case, but a little bit. It's just another case of if they had more challenges or different rooms or different whatever, then it'd be fine. Which maybe they are working on that. I don't know, but it's still a good game. I like it. It's almost an 8, so cool. Party I already talked about. I just think the minigame selection in Party is currently a little bit better than Gauntlet's game selection, especially removing the context of the event. And then Runner's Rampage from Biome Battle is here. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a really cool looking map, etc. I think the game is too long, and I think it's sometimes not very intuitive. I think for the rest, the gameplay is really good. This one could be either top of 7 or bottom of 8. I don't think it really matters. We'll continue over to the next portion. This could be here or here. I think it's probably here or here. I don't really know. I think there's a lot of things that the Runner's Rampage does that are really cool. I feel like the experience just drags a little bit too much personally, but I think it's really cool. But I'm like, this could go any way really. I might just put it there. It doesn't really matter. Either way. Next up is the 8, which is we're getting to the elite tier, right? Close. This is great games. Sky Battle, it's great. It was peak. I think the game has not been in the best state within MCC. I think current Sky Battle is some of the lower quality Sky Battle we've seen. and it's still an 8, which kind of shows that it's just a really good game concept. Of course, there is an oversaturation in terms of Sky games right now, but Sky Battle still somehow manages to kind of feel like it stands out sometimes, which is impressive, right? And I think that's cool. So yeah, Sky Battle, great game. Zap and Cap, I like it a lot. I think it's cool. It's very unique, which I do want to give some extra slight bonus points for. It feels very unique. Every time you play it, you're in like a different environment than any other event game kind of feels like, and I think that's cool. I think it's really awesome. I think this is a nice format. Of course, you could have targeting or whatever, right? But I think the custom combat is cool. Some movement options that are different. It looks really cool, so I like it. It's a great game. So yeah. Zap and Cap 8. Then you have Golf from Chamber Trials, which is one of the staple games that keeps getting brought up to me every single time that I talk about Minecraft event games. And it makes sense. I mean, Golf is a team, like pure teamwork based game where you play golf. I think conceptually is really good. The main thing that I think holds Golf back is that it just isn't visually appealing. It's just an armor stand that gets knocked with some knockback. Well, I think it actually does have clubs, like golf clubs, if I remember correctly, or it's like a punch. I don't really know exactly how it works. But it's just very bare bones visually, and I think if it were to be really nice looking visually somehow, it would be like a high-end 8, or potentially even close to a 9. Probably a high-end 8. But yeah, gameplay-wise, really cool. Visually, lacking. That's my take. Then you have Multispleef. Multispleef is Mayhem's, like, one of Mayhem's most iconic games, right? I would say it's Mayhem's most iconic game. I don't think it's their best, but it's their most iconic game, the most, staple one that Mayhem has to offer. And I think it's really good. Like, I think the way the game works is really cool. After having seen it quite a few times in the same state, which is the current version of looking at the game, the coolness does wear off a little bit. I think Multispleef, like when, we saw it when Mayhem was active in like the earlier days, was like a 9. I think it was really cool. I do think that wears off a little bit. It does kind of feel like a similar experience every time, which is still great, but it's not like fantastic. So yeah, that's why it's an 8. Trailblazers from Blockwars, I think is a really cool concept. I know a lot of people are very passionate about Trailblazers because this is the best test of movement that any event scene or any event in the event scene has, I think, right? It tests every bit of movement in a really nice fashion. I do wish that the game was a little bit more intuitive sometimes, but I don't think it's that confusing once you kind of pay a little bit of extra attention to it. For the rest, it's just good. It's like a great game. I think if you remove it out of the context of Blockwars and make it a bit more competitive leaning, I think this game kind of is a lot more appealing. I think it's just cooler seeing the competitive people face off in Trailblazers, but I think it's good. It's a good game, so I like it. Yeah, great game even. It's an 8, so fantastic. Then you have a Race from Blockwars, which is, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, the second best racing game out there right now. I think the map quality as of recent has improved a lot. I think the way the game plays and feels is smooth. I think it's nice. It feels fluid, and that's good. And some people brought up that they think Race should be like a 6 or a 5 because of the team points. I understand that the team points aren't great, and obviously it's going to be looked into. It's not like we ignore feedback. But what's it called? I think it's a little crazy to completely write off a game's quality just because of the points if it doesn't impact the way you have to play the game, right? For example, a lack of survival points in a PvP game means that you shouldn't be playing for survival, whereas the way the points in Race work with the team bonus, yes, I agree it's a little silly that your teammate's performance has an impact on your score. Sure, that also applies in Parkour Warrior though. But it doesn't mean that you would play the race differently. You are not playing the race differently because of the points. So that's why I don't think it has an impact on the way it would be ranked. So yeah, Race, great game. I like it a lot. Mine Armenia, Fantastic. I was actually kind of considering Minor Mania to potentially be a 9. The reason it's not, I don't remember, but I know there was a good reason on stream. I think it's because when you compare it to something like BattleBox, the progression in the game is a bit more linear. Yes, you can have back and forth moments, but in BattleBox you can sometimes have like a major surprise, and it actually happens not that, uncommonly. Like a major surprise, somebody does like a crazy play. In Minor Mania, you don't really see crazy plays that much. You kind of just see people, work together, which is great. Still, it's a good game, but you see kind of more of a like expected progression, right? A fight is won, and afterwards the benefits are seen on screen. The point increase is seen, whereas in something like BattleBox, of course, you right there see this moment happen, and yeah, it's cool. Great game. Meltdown, great game. The downside, we've talked about it a lot. I think people have seen it. Half the teams get screwed over in Meltdown, which hurts it a lot. But otherwise, if that wasn't a thing, this would be an easy 9, because this is a fantastic game concept. I think it plays really nicely. It looks really cool. But half the teams don't really get a fun experience out of it usually, which kind of sucks. Rocket League Rush, great game as well. I've also given my thoughts about this a lot. I think it's a really cool looking game, a very unique experience. The reason it is kind of held back a little bit is because it doesn't really feel newcomer friendly, and that's I think something that can remove some points off of a game score, in my opinion at least. And it's my list, so who cares? Anyways, Rocket League, great game. Soccer from Trials is their best game entry on this list. And I think that makes sense. I mean, it's a teamwork-based game. I'm looking at this like Chalice Chase, right? It's a round-robin game that isn't PvP but feels really competitive, and I think that's impressive. I think that's good. I think that's great. Soccer, constant action. I think it's really cool. Same thing as per usual with Chamber of Trials. The visual appeal is lacking. I think it could look cooler. I think it wouldn't actually be that tricky to make the game look cooler. So yeah, I wish they make the game look cooler, because it just is a little lacking in my opinion. But that's my take. For the rest, I think it's a great game though. So hell yeah. Next up, Chalice Chase. I think this is a fantastic game as well. What it is held back by is the same thing that I have with To Get to the Side, is that getting consistently punched is really frustrating and sometimes makes me want to rip my hair out. And that is a part of a lesser fun experience, but for the rest, it's really cool, it's really intense, it's really active, and I also think it fits really well in a competitive roster, which, with that factor removed, it would be less fun in a non-PB roster probably, or a non-competitive roster rather, right? But I don't think it'd be that much less fun. I think it still would be a great experience. So Chalice Chase ranks really highly. It's great. Hole in the Wall, I think it's fantastic. It's a super simple custom concept, and it plays out nicely. It ramps up in intensity. The end of Hole in the Wall is never really like mid. It's always like a cool moment. There's always like some hype to it. I feel like there's always like something intense about it, and it's sick. Even in spectating, while you're watching the Hole in the Wall, play out, I think it's really cool. And yeah, I like it a lot. It's fantastic. So it's very, very great. Cosmic Construction, one of the better renditions we've seen of what's it called? Of a building game. Now I'm gonna give this take. This feels like Build Mart but fixed to an extent. I don't really know how to explain it, but this feels like Build Mart but fixed, kind of. The builds have just been simplified. There's less options. I think the Build Mart format's cool. There's just a lot going on. This simplifies it quite a bit. I think it's a bit more constantly active. They have the black hole and whatever that helps you gather stuff quicker, etc. And I think it's a lot easier to communicate, etc. I think this is good. I like it a lot. It's a great game. So yeah. Then we have Temple Lockout, which I'm sure to some may come as a surprise. But I think Temple Lockout is a really good game for PB. It is a fantastic game for PB even, But unfortunately, we're removing the context of the event, which does mean Temple suffers a little bit because it's very sweaty, very competitive. Also, I will say 2 bits of feedback against it that dock at some points. Number 1, there is a mosh pit at the end because it is a battle royale. It's not a crazy mosh pit, but there is usually a mosh pit at the end, which is a little unfortunate. Number 2, I think the alternate kit round with the axe and the trident is super gimmicky and I think a little meh, especially if you remove the context of PB. Some people wouldn't really know how to use that properly and it would just not be a fun experience, I think, for them. So that's my take on that, and that's why Temple Lockout is at the top of the 8 or the great or whatever you want to call it tier. Then we'll go to the 9s and 10s because there's only one 10. It's Dodgebolt. But let's go to the 9s first. I will say the 9s were mostly influenced by not me. This was where the chat helped a lot. I think the ones that I put this highly myself was Factory Frenzy, because I think it actually no, Factory Frenzy was already given quite a lot of props, but I think this is a very fair 9 tier. 3 MCC games, 3 blockwars games, and 1 Mayhem game. When you remove the context of the events that they belong to, this makes sense. Order Up, it's a cooking game. It's a very unique game. It's actually kind of overlooked how unique it is. It's a crafting-based game, which doesn't really, happen a lot. I guess Bingo would be the closest, but it's a different main gimmick than Order Up. A lot of teamwork going on. A lot of strategy can go on. It's very interesting. I think it's cool. And I like it. I think it's a great game. Fantastic. Order Up is really cool. I think if you remove the blockwars, what's it called? Environment, it actually helps it a little bit because this is a bit more of a competitive game within the blockwars roster, and I think it's great. I think it's cool. Of course, there's the fair argument that like the gathering POV for this game can be a little bit meh, but I also think that could have to do with how the team assigns their jobs, etc. Right? When I was the gathering POV in the Boblu blockwars with me and Booster as a duo, I didn't not enjoy it. I still had a good time. I thought it was cool. So I think it just depends per person. And yeah, I think the reason some people don't like the gathering is because it feels like they're forced to gather, which I think is fair. But that's not the game's fault. That's the team's like strategy fault, I guess, to an extent, right? That makes sense. So yeah, it's a 9. I like it. Blitz Hunt, if I'm being honest, had we had the context of the event, Blitz Hunt and probably Sands of Time too would be higher. I actually think, no, I think Blitz Hunt would have been higher. Loki could have been a 10 if it was just the blockwars context. I low-key think this could have been a 10. But the reason it's not is because if you remove the context of blockwars, which is a little bit of a more casual, silly, goofy event, Blitz Hunt wouldn't be as fun of an experience in an event where you're trying to win really hard and then get screwed over in Blitz Hunt, which is very possible and sometimes out of your control. Otherwise, fantastic game. I think it's really quick, really, it's got a lot of exciting moments. I think it's really cool. And the POV is as exciting as you make it, honestly. You can watch a Feinberg POV, who's a really competitive player and just, goofs around in all the games, or you can watch a POV of somebody who's, just quiet the entire time. But I still think, from a viewing standpoint, the game is always going to have some exciting moments and some cool surprises that I think are exciting, and that's why it's a 9. It's an amazing game. Next up, Factory Frenzy. This is the best building game, and how I mentioned Cosmic Construction feels like fixed build mart, Factory Frenzy feels like fixed construction. I think this is a really good game, and I think it's just construction, but the teamwork side of things is way more smoothly incorporated, and that's good. Not really much else to say about it. I think it's really good. It's a fantastic game. It deserves a 9. Great job to Mayhem. I didn't think Mayhem would be... Well, actually, no, I did think Mayhem was going to have one. I didn't think Mayhem would be here without some of the other events being here. But, hey, they managed to pull it off. Battle Box. I already talked about simple, round-robin PvP game that has really exciting moments in it, right? It has these really cool pop-offs. It can have these surprises. It has the opportunity for people to have different strategies, etc. And as much as it does have a bit of map dependency, some maps do make the game a little bit less interesting, but I think on average, BattleBox is really good, and that's why it is a 9. Next up, though, is Extraction, which is also a round-robin based game. However, Extraction is a bit more consistent, right? Its map doesn't really affect the gameplay as much as it does in BattleBox, because in BattleBox, the map also affects the kits, and I think that can sometimes be a detriment to the experience. In Extraction, that doesn't really happen. I think Extraction is a really simple but consistently good round-robin game, and the chat was really excited about Extraction and really was pushing for it being higher than BattleBox. I was debating BattleBox being better, but Extraction has been crowned the best round-robin PvP game, apparently. Also, the chat mentioned that on average, an Extraction map is going to be better than a BattleBox map, but the best BattleBox-like map within BattleBox is more exciting than the best Extraction, whatever, right? That's roughly what I understood was the thought, but more on average, Extraction is better, is what they said. So cool, Extraction, technically third best game, kind of insane, but hell yeah. Then you have Ace Race. It's what, you know, spawned so many racing games to kind of look and feel like this. It's really good. It's really exciting. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on. It's fantastic. It's a great game. Ace Race, second best game. Makes sense. Do I need to say more? And then SOT. This one, it's a 9. The only reason it's a 9 is because the game has been kind of the same for the past few years. Mostly. There's been some updates, but it's mostly been the same for the past few years. And it does make the experience of watching Sense of Time slightly more bland. Not just bland, it's still a great game mode. It's still a 9. It's the top of 9. It's the best game outside of Dodgebolt, because that's a finale. But it's the best mini game in the event scene, and yeah, it's fantastic. I just think it's not a 10 because it could be better. It could be more interesting. They could do more with it, which is why it's not a 10. But finally, there's Dodgebolt, which is the only 10. It's the perfect finale. It just is. Anybody can have a pop-off. It's been 5.5 years of seeing Dodgebolt, and to this day, literally super recently, last month, we see some of the coolest moments still happen. We see a game that's literally, fundamentally not really changed that much. There's been some changes, right? The balancing and stuff, etc., right? The comeback potential, whatever. There's some stuff that's there to help people in Dodgebolt. But fundamentally, the concept of Dodgebolt, fantastic, and it's the best finale that we have seen and probably will ever see. This is why I always say people should stop comparing finales to Dodgebolt to decide whether it's good or not. Because of course it's not going to be better than Dodgebolt. Dodgebolt's the best finale. It's the perfect finale. You cannot make a better finale than Dodgebolt. Besides in Block Wars Chaos, Rock, Paper, Scissors, because that was peak. But outside of Block Wars Chaos context, which this would be ranked in, Rock, Paper, Scissors is like a solid 4. So it doesn't compete with Dodgebolt, which no matter the context is a fantastic finale. Anyways, that is my ranking. Theoretically speaking, this means that the best event game roster kind of would be SOT, Ace Race, Extraction, avoiding, you know, the same type of game mode. You would have Factory Frenzy, not BattleBox, Blitz Hunt, Order Up, Temple Lockout, and because you already have a building game, you wouldn't have Cosmic Construction, so then you would do Hole in the Wall, and I think then you would be good, right? I think that'd be it. Is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9? Well, you have Challenge Chase would be like Blitz Hunt, so Soccer, that's probably enough. It's a round robin thing again, though. I don't know. That would be your best game roster according to my list, so let me know your thoughts on this list of me yapping for almost an hour, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.